Welcome all. I believe we are live. If I can have a hurrah in the chat, make sure I'm live and we have volume.
I don't see any hurrahs.
I don't see.
I see a hurrah.
Mr. Furzel. All right, we are live. Welcome, one and all. We are live with our very first watch party. We're going to kind of keep the same format, but this is all new for us, guys. And with me today is James Hellier. Thank you, James. Welcome. And we should all be queued up to watch Labyrinth. So, James, tell me about your experience with Labyrinth. Good, bad, indifferent?
I think this is one I should have been the ideal age to have seen this in the cinema when it was released. But from memory, it wasn't around terribly long, and that might not be unusual nowadays, but back then, if things were successful, they were in the cinema for weeks on end, and this was kind of gone in a fortnight, so I missed it and probably caught it years later when it showed up on commercial television.
Very interesting because you're in the UK, so I know our markets, I'm in the States, I know our markets are different, but yeah, a movie here would be active for a couple months at least until every set was gotten and then they would pull it. And so yeah, well, let's get started. We should be about 15 seconds into the sync point. So, hey, James, why don't you count us down and we will begin.
Okay. We have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
And we are a go. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. And so while the credits are showing, let's see who's with us today. Okay, over in YouTube, who do we have? Miss Swift, Plutonium Shore, Jedi Wizard, Alex Peacock, Edward the Black Prince, old Johnny Devick. We have Eric Mad Matt, Brainwire. Oh boy, full crowd today. Yes, that is Pazuzu, Miss Swift. You have
Technical advisor, Pazuzu.
Pazuzu. All right. And so we are bringing back the Discord chat for anybody who would like to chat there. We are at what is it? I keep forgetting the name. The Retro and Pop Culture Fan Club.
Something just worth pointing out is you're seeing this owl flap around the screen. I believe this was the first attempt to create a photorealistic computer-generated animal.
Aha.
I'm not sure it worked.
Well, that is open for debate. And of course, yeah, Frank Oz did a lot of the puppet work. Yes, so, okay, let's see who is in the Discord chat. All right, let's see. All right, we have Mr. Furzel, Ms. Swift, Alex Peacock, Plutonium Shore, Mad Matt. Who am I missing? Am I missing anyone? Cowbot. All right, welcome all, Alex Peacock. Oh, my old friends. We've been at this for a while, haven't we? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, so I like bringing back the Discord chat. And so we've got the YouTube and the Discord chat going at the same time. So we'll see how this goes. All right. So one of the reasons why I chose this movie was about the time it came out. I was around the same age as Jennifer Connelly. And this movie really resonated with me. as a young kid, I lost myself in the movies and in the world of make believe and fantasies. Um, and it was also one of the writers was Terry Jones of Monty Python fame. Although he says by the end of the movie, that draft was nothing like he had envisioned, but he still has writing credits because it was
I
kind of his
understand.
story.
You understand it was basically he did the first draft. It was then rewritten by the rest of Hollywood and its dog, who took pretty much all the jokes out of the movie. And then Henson went back to him and said, "Can you make it funny again?" And he tried to put the jokes back, but there were certain things that had been done to the story that he couldn't quite fix again.
Yeah. And there was a lot of elements that Jim Henson, what he wanted to keep it at that uh, PG kid level. Um, so we'll see. I mean, and this is the final product, and so it came together the way that Hollywood and Jim Henson wanted it to.
I think there's a good point here from Plutonium Shore that eagle eyed viewers might like to keep an eye on the items in Jennifer Connelly's bedroom because rather a lot of them become significant as the film goes on.
Yes. And I believe if you can catch some of the books that are in her room, they go back to some of the influences on the story. And so, of course, who can also relate with being a young child with having a step parent that you don't necessarily get along with? All right. Okay, so Plutonium Shore said if you look at the articles in her bedroom, Sarah's mom became an actress and ran off with another actor played by David Bowie. Okay. Okay, Mr. Furzel, where did they film this? I believe it was filmed mostly in upstate New York and I think in the UK.
Oh,
Uh,
look, Labyrinth.
it's a labyrinth. There we go. There's the books.
Snow White.
Grimm's Fairy Tales, Wizard of Oz.
And that was her mother with David Bowie.
Yep. Coincidence? Um, I remember in the 80s that David Bowie, even though he got his start in the 70s, was very prevalent in the 80s with his music, um, especially MTV music videos, back when MTV actually played the music videos. Okay, Mad Matt, you missed the book Where the Wild Things Are. Oh, I didn't see that on her shelf. Yeah, I didn't see that. Very good catch. So, got a question for the chat. When was the last time you all saw this movie? And I am blind as a bat without my reading glasses.
I see Eric saying a lot of the stuff you can see in her room, many people think it's all a dream that Sarah has. There's a clue here. It's all the dream that Sarah has.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that theory. Plutonium, sure, you have it on Laserdisc. That is a keeper. Oh, Alex Peacock, the last time you saw it was at a theater rerun after Bowie died. Yes, I remember he died probably was it 8 years ago? I want to say 2016. I might have to Google that. I thought it was 2016.
It was 2016.
Okay. Oh, Miss Swift saw it 2 weeks ago. A channel played it right after the Dark Crystal. Yes.
It's a sadistic channel.
And what is so there was a trilogy that the Henson company produced. It was the Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, and what is the name of the third one?
Hmm.
And I didn't even realize there was a trilogy, but I know it was in the Discord chat a little bit ago. And I wonder who has seen that. Who's seen all three movies? Yeah, Mirror Mask. That's it. Mirror Mask. All one word, right? Mirror Mask. Mirror Mask. So yes, so right now they are laying the groundwork for Sarah entering into the labyrinth. So we get a picture of her life, and there is a really good argument that what she experienced was simply a dream. All of um, her fantasy elements in her life are brought in her dream. Everything that she's reading, everything that she loves in her life, because her real life is not ideal. So she was escaping into this fantasy world. So it becomes her dream. And yeah, so I can relate with that. I think that's what started my love of movies.
I think it would be a bit of a coincidence for it to be real and for everything in her reality to be an echo of something she happened to have in her bedroom or her children's storybooks.
Exactly. There just happened to be a Goblin King
Hmm.
that
David
looks like
Bowie stole away her mother, and
that
then this
stole away
David
her mother.
Bowie figure turned up to steal away her. Ooh.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
When owls attack.
There was a comment before the Guardians of Gaul. There was a book series about owls. Oh, David Bowie. This was pretty much at the height of his career in the 80s.
David Bowie, his wig, and his codpiece.
So, interesting tidbit, when he has the glass ball in his hand, that is a stunt actor whose arms are put through the costume to do that.
Yes, it's a juggler who can't actually see what he's juggling.
Yep. He is, yeah, he's completely blind doing this. So let's try to all do that blind. I don't think so.
And of course, they're probably quite lucky they ended up with Bowie for the film because I believe Henson had originally wanted to cast Sting.
I had not heard that.
But his children told him to get Bowie. And Bowie wanted to do a children's movie.
Sting was very popular at that time too, having gone solo from The Police.
And having also worn a thong in David Lynch's Dune.
Yeah, there was a comment. Who had the comment about this is all Bowie and not a codpiece? Yeah, plutonium sure that wasn't a codpiece. That was all Bowie, baby.
Now, I often complain about fantasy films that they're all the same and I can't tell them apart. I can't tell whether they're the one with Tom Cruise, the one with Tim Curry, the one with David Bowie, the one with the puppets, because they're all the same. And then I found out there's actually a coincidental thing behind this, that apparently the studio where they recorded this, they were recording Legend next door. And so you had the cast of the two fantasy movies mixing it up at lunchtime, which must have been a sight to behold.
And that Legend was one of Tom Cruise's very first roles, I believe.
Mm.
Well, actually, yeah, it was. His first one was, I think, in the early 80s. And the name of that movie is right on the tip of my tongue.
Risky Business, is it?
Risky Business. That's it. Thank you, James. That's it. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Which I think,
And he did that one before Top Gun.
I think Risky Business has just had a nice 4K from Criterion. That was your
And
advocate side.
if I remember correctly, Risky Business was 82, 81 or 82?
83.
83. Legend. I don't know if I have that on the list of possibilities. I should add Legend.
Which I think for people in America, the nice people at Arrow have done a fancy edition of.
The character of Hoggle is actually very ingenious back in the day of practical effects. That the head is a mask that went on the character actor, and the whole mask is like animatronically controlled. She's not doing any of that. And yet she's got to act in character like she's doing that. Wow. Oh yeah, okay, Miss Swift. Legend was post Risky Business and Outsiders. That's right. Oh boy, that takes me back. And let's see, I think Taps must have been right around that too. Oh boy, that goes back into Tom Cruise's career, doesn't it?
Is
That's
that,
the
is that before he discovered everyone's favourite Hollywood religion?
that was actually that was. Um, it was his first wife. Oh boy, this goes way back. Um, Mimi Rogers. There
Right.
you go. And we could go down that rabbit hole too, where he met her early in his career.
And I think she was the one who converted him to L. Ron Hubbardism.
I believe that's true. Oh, Miss Swift, was Tom Cruise in Lords of Flatbush too? Was he? I think Lords of Flatbush was Sylvester Stallone and Henry Winkler, right?
No idea.
Oh, I believe, if memory serves. Oh boy, we went on that tangent. Yeah, Born on the 4th of July. Alex
Lord,
Peacock, that's right. He was nominated for an Oscar for Born on the 4th of July
ah,
too.
Lords of Flatbush, Sylvester Stallone, and the Fonz.
And the
You
Fawn.
want
Oh boy.
the
Yeah.
Fonz, a man whose office is in a toilet cubicle at a cafe frequented by school children. How wholesome.
I grew up on Happy Days.
Yes, I remember
I,
as a child thinking the Fonz was cool, and now I think he's vaguely sinister.
he was the coolest. And this was, I'm aging myself. There were kids that used to trick or treat as the Fonz.
I do think, looking at the film at the moment, how studio bound and artificial it is really does work in its favour, because it as leaps out at you that she is somewhere that isn't real. But rather than just thinking that it's somewhere stagey, it lends it that air of unreality that's good for the fantasy.
Yeah, very good set direction. Well, as the audience, we do want to believe that she's in this fantastical world and she's on an adventure.
I do not believe Gary here, who is saying that Tom Cruise was an Ewok in Return of the Jedi. I think he's made that up.
Uh, I think that's a little dig at Tom Cruise supposedly being 5 foot. I think five foot one.
A tiny little man
He's a tiny little man.
who has to be cast against tiny little women, or they have to stand in dips, or he has to stand on a box.
And go figure, he married his second wife, and she's almost a foot taller than him.
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman's got some height on her.
Who played a married couple in a Stanley Kubrick film who had the worst chemistry of any couple I've ever seen in anything.
I have avoided that movie, I think, for that very reason. Having a real life couple in a movie, it's a hit or miss, but I did hear that it was just bad overall.
I think there's a reason why Tom Cruise in his filmography generally sticks to films where he runs and jumps and ducks and things blow up behind him, rather than him having to do lots of heavy acting lifting.
Oh, good.
All props to him for throwing himself out of planes, out of trains, off cliffs, and he'll probably chuck himself out of a spaceship for the next Mission Impossible film. That's all very impressive, but when you're actually doing it for real, it's not exactly acting.
And when you think about he's 60 and still insists on doing his own stunts,
Mm.
I give him props for it for as I guess as long as he's able to do it. I mean, I'm almost
He's also
60, almost, and there's no way I do what he did.
and, bizarrely, for all he's mocked, he is actually one of the few remaining actual movie stars that we've got left, whose name can open a film at the box office, as opposed to it having to be some franchise picture.
Yeah, he is the draw. Um, they usually put his name above the movie title, the credits. He gets top billing. Um, so
We're desperately keeping away from the musical number that's on screen at the moment.
uh, yeah, yeah. I love this movie. It's just, you feel like dancing. It's just not something it's easy to sing along with. But I do love the puppetry. I love the practical effects.
You say
I will,
puppetry, I say muppetry.
yeah. I, I am from the practical effects era. I will always love that over CGI, always.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, there's a lot to be said for having something tactile there that people are actually interacting with. I mean, it must be hellish doing some of these modern movies where they're basically in front of a green screen acting against a tennis ball on a stick.
or if you're lucky, you actually have a human in a green suit with the tennis balls
On a stick.
act, on a stick acting in front of you that they will later transpose the CGI image on. Um, and it was just a given in the film industry that the CGI was to overtake the practical effects. Um, but give me a good old fashioned practical effect over CGI any day.
You kind of get that things like that bizarre prequel, sequel thing to The Thing, where they did all the practical effects and then the studio slathered it with CGI anyway, and it's the CGI stuff that's awful when you watch it. And you see the test footage that got leaked to the practical stuff, and that actually looks quite good. It's the same that if you pop on a disc of like the Star Wars films now, the original trilogy,
Oh,
the bits that really, really make those painful to watch for me now, they're not the few bits that are surviving of the film that was in the cinema in 1977. It's the CGI dinosaurs that are everywhere.
what's interesting about that, if you've not experienced the original Star Wars in the theater pre the CGI bastardization, if you will, um, there's a beauty to it. But then the generations that came after that had never seen that in the theater, so all they know are the special editions after special editions where they've cleaned up all the grainy features of the original. They've added all the CGI, that the creatures, that's all they know. Um, it's too bad. I mean,
Well, I think we're going very off topic here, but I think in particular Star Wars, not A New Hope, Star Wars. In the cinema, it was called Star Wars. That's a film that won Oscars for its special effects, and you can't see the special effects that won the Oscar anymore. That's wrong.
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, and even in the chat, in order to see the unadulterated original Star Wars: A New Hope or
There are
Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, if you want to see those, you actually have to go looking for them, because all that's out now are the special edition. I mean,
when they were released, the special editions were released on DVD. They did do an extra disc with each film that had the last proper release of the cinematic versions, but they were the old laserdisc transfers, and they weren't made anamorphic, so they're low, very low def. You watch them on a modern TV screen, they're the wrong shape, and it's like they've gone out of their way to make these things so you can't watch them
Yeah.
without going into the realms of file sharing and black market Blu-rays and all stuff like that we really shouldn't be encouraging.
Yeah. Unfortunately, back in the 90s, when George Lucas first approved the updated versions, he then went on to say, and I'll never forget this, that he said that this new updated version is the version that I wanted to make in the beginning. And this is what I wanted from the get go. So the original versions went by the wayside. There are places to find it. You're right, but you're right. You have to
But
go through that step.
I think there are two different teams out there who've been trying to preserve them. I think one has taken the special editions and tried to de-specialize them to get back to closer to what was originally in the cinema,
Yes.
and the other has located various 35mm cinema prints that were still in circulation and tried to restore them to get them up to the quality that people might be able to watch. But it's all very copyright skirting, dodging, and highly illegal.
Yeah. Oh, in the chat, Eric, yes, did mention Harmy's despecialized editions. Um,
Yeah, I think Harmy's ones are the ones that are using old 35mm cinema
yeah,
prints, and the Project 4K is the one where they've taken the top of the line, 4K restoration of the special editions and started taking the bits out to work back to what was there before.
right. And I believe Harmy's, the despecialized editions are not considered file sharing or copyright infringed because they are technically fan made. So they are available out there if anybody is interested in checking that out.
The key
That is
thing
my
is you
understanding,
must,
though.
in no circumstances, pay anyone for a copy of them.
Right.
That is a
Exactly.
as that's the key part of the project has always been that they're available for fans to share with one another. You will see people on eBay and Etsy trying to sell discs of them. Don't buy them.
Okay. So,
Nice
oh
and
boy, back to the movie. I love these tangents. Oh, on a side note, a lot of the choreography for this movie and also the Dark Crystal was done by, I'm sure a lot of people out there know, her name is Cheryl McFadden, but we also know her as Gates McFadden. And for her to work as a choreographer, she has to use she uses the name Cheryl McFadden.
So that would be the joint worst Doctor on Star Trek: The Next Generation. That Gates McFadden.
That Gates McFadden, yep, from Star Trek Next Generation.
At least Dr. Pulaski had banter or attempted banter with Data.
Mm. Oh, so are you Team Pulaski? Is it Pulaski? Polanski. I
It was
can't remember.
Pulaski.
Pulaski. It's been a
Pulaski
while.
people might have people thinking she's some fugitive sex offender. Now,
Yes, Mr.
I,
First,
I,
Dr.
I think
Fisher.
the Pulaski character I thought was an interesting attempt to try and introduce a bit of conflict into the Next Generation crew, which didn't really work because the conflict just came down to calling data names once an episode.
Yes, Alex Peacock, that gets McFadden from Hunt from Red October.
And
Um,
I do have a false memory about how Dr. Pulaski left Star Trek: The Next Generation. For years, I was convinced that she said goodbye to Captain Picard and stepped into a turbo lift, only for the lift not to be there before she plummeted to her death. Only to years later find out that's how she left LA Law.
yep, that's how she left LA Law. She stepped into an elevator and there was no door.
Well, in my Star Trek: The Next Generation, she fell down a turbo lift shaft.
Ah, let's cross universe. LA Law, Star Trek The Next Generation. Um, yes, Miss Swift, I'm Team Crusher too. I much prefer Dr. Crusher because I that's who we grew and loved in season one, and then in season two, she was gone.
You
No
grew to love
explanation.
things in season one? What's wrong with you?
I saw all season one of Star Trek The Next Generation, and then season two, Dr. Crusher was gone.
Yes, and I saw the first two seasons on the BBC as well, and apart from about two episodes, they were irredeemably awful. Doesn't get good until the third season.
Okay. Oh, was she in the second season too? I can't remember. Tasha Yar left at the end of the second
Pulaski
season.
was in the second season. Tasha
Okay.
Yar left part way through the first season, and then came back as various other Tasha Yars.
Okay.
But again, it's one of these things again that because in the UK our TV series have much shorter seasons than yours do. Yours will like run for 26 weeks a year, or they
Mhm.
used to. Ours used to have like maybe 6 episodes if it was a sitcom, or 13 to 26 half-hour episodes if it was Doctor Who. So your short-lived American series that might have only run for one season, they seem to go on forever over here, and I'm always surprised to find out like that Street Hawk was something like that was a mid-season replacement that only ran for 13 episodes. But with Star Trek, it made me think that Tasha Yar was in it a lot more than it was because she was in it for the best part of one of your long seasons.
Yeah, I think she left at the end of the second season. Um, 24 to 25 episodes per season, usually for
Yeah,
an hour long show.
I
That's
think
a
the second
lot.
season was a bit less because you had one of your periodic writers' strikes, and
Mm.
there's only so many clip shows you can do to keep the show on the road.
Well, a few years back, I believe we started taking the UK's um, view on TV shows, and we started shortening our seasons. I don't know of, well, I'm sure there are a ton of shows that run 24 to 25 episodes per season,
Mm.
but more often than not, the quality content comes in those limited series, 8 to 10 to 12 episodes.
But I think part of it with these the more limited series that came in is when you're getting, as an example, it's Glenn Close or someone like that in to do a series, they're not going to commit to do 26 1 hour episodes a year, but they might do a series of 10 episodes. And I think that's the thing that when they started, you saw the movement on the series length. It was when you started getting movie stars doing television as a proper prestige thing, whereas before they kind of only did television when their careers had gone down the toilet.
Right. Yeah, TV stars were TV stars, movie stars were movie stars. That's not the case anymore.
The bog of stench.
The
I'm pretty certain
eternal,
that is something that Terry Jones is responsible for.
mhm, the eternal bog of stench. Yeah, and Terry Jones being involved in this movie segues a bit into a movie that I would like to do sometime this year. I just don't know when. It's on my list.
Terry Jones, what could it be? Jabberwocky?
Huh, huh, Terry Jones.
Jabberwocky.
There's so many to choose from. So yeah, let's shout this out to the chat. Um, I my goal with this is to expand this watch party into every genre, every decade, any type of movie that you can think of. There's people out there that love action, that don't like action, love rom-coms, don't like rom-coms. But I think we could choose a wide variety of movies that that would appeal to a large audience. I've got a list of a lot of different ones. Um, some I'm leaning towards more than others. And what does the chat say? What do you guys think of that idea? Because we've been sticking mostly to the horror, the sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, because that's what Creator VC was doing. And as of late, they've been expanding and doing the comedies and some of the adventure movies, which I thought was a great idea. So
It's because you liked Nuns on the Run.
I did like Nuns on the Run. And I particularly like when the chat, we get together and we start talking about a movie and one just kind of catches our fancy and we start talking about it. Um, and before you know it, we're watching it. So, oh, okay, Frag Lord, Groundhog Day. That's a good one.
See, uh, that's another one of those movies where they take a character that I like and turn them into someone redeemed who I don't like at the end of it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it's a bit like that Jack Nicholson film, As Good as It Gets. He's far more entertaining as like the nasty guy putting puppies down the waste disposal chute than he is as the nice guy at the end who goes around being kind to people. I'd rather watch sarcastic Bill Murray than nice romantic Bill Murray.
Wow, interesting. Interesting. Um, okay, Alex, speak
We'll
up.
make
Let's
an
cast a
exception
wide
for
net.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I like that idea. Casting a wide net. Let's see. Over in the YouTube chat. Okay, hell if I
Carolina
know. Oh,
wants a
the
bit of Alec
shadow.
Baldwin.
That was Alec Baldwin. I believe I saw that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Helifino also suggested the Marx Brothers. Whoa, boy, that's going back, isn't it? I'm not opposed to it. Um, One of the other things I'm looking at is also the availability of these movies. Um, I am in the States. I'm in the US, so movies are tend to be readily available here, but maybe not overseas. Or ones that I can't find here are readily available overseas. There's a balance that I'm looking for. Um, dare I say, movies like Day of the Dolphin. Okay.
That's readily available on physical media from Indicator.
It is. It's readily available if you can find the DVD.
Blu-ray.
Uh, so finding it streaming, it's a bit more complicated.
Which was why I was prepared to compromise on another Mike Nichols genre film.
Oh, which one? Am I?
Obviously, Jack Nicholson in Wolf.
Oh, that's right. You did mention that. Yep, that
Although if
is
it
a
was a
compromise.
completely different genre, I'd also accept Robin Williams in The Birdcage.
Oh, Robin Williams. There's another library. Oh man, that's extensive. Oh boy. So, all right. So that's kind of what I'm doing, compiling the list and obviously getting input from you guys. Um, it doesn't have to be a movie that we've all seen before. It doesn't have to be a movie that we all like or agree on. Um, I particularly,
Alex Peacock chiming in support for The Birdcage. The money's on the dresser, chocolate drop.
okay, The Birdcage. I'll put that on the list. I've got a bunch of movies that are going on the list. Um,
I've got a spreadsheet to put together that I'll share with you later. I've
okay.
sorted a load of ideas by year, genre, and interesting points like Chuck Norris.
Yes. Um, yeah, and I want to get movies that we have fun talking about, even though we've been here, what, almost an hour, and we're rarely touching on the movie.
There's they had a labyrinth. They're in a labyrinth. We're waiting for them to get to the centre of the labyrinth. And some horrible little things have tortured a big furry thing, which was quite intense.
Oh, his name is Ludo, right? Ludo, Ludo. Like a
I,
big old
I
teddy bear.
can't be tolerating the torture of innocent furry creatures like that. If it had been a
Yeah.
child, I wouldn't have had a problem. But a poor creature like that, unacceptable.
Yeah. Even though he is the size of a bear. Yeah. Okay. Um, oh, Miss Swift, Ludo rocks. Yes, he does. And there is one guy in the costume, I believe, controlling Ludo.
I believe they've also got on him a video camera in his right horn so that the artist inside can see what he's doing.
Well, that to me is a technical feat that they were able to get that big of a costume and not weigh that poor guy in the costume down. He's moving freely.
Look, as,
It's got to
Alex,
be
as
fun.
Alex is pointing out, there was only one guy in Big Bird, and Big Bird moved around a hell of a lot more than that.
That's true. Oh boy, that's right. Back when I remember the beginning of Sesame Street, and to date me even further, I remember. Oh gosh, the name of the actor escapes me. Easy Reader from Electric Company. Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. His early days. And yep, I remember when Mr. Hooper died. And that segues into this movie with Jim Henson's Muppets.
Now, I seem to remember here that the baby, people say that in the scene coming up, he's so well behaved and so perfect, but apparently the little baby was not well behaved or perfect and screamed his head off through the film. And what they had to do to keep him calm was they found someone had a sooty puppet. And David Bowie ended up with a sooty puppet on one of his hands that he'd be holding out of shot to keep the baby entranced with the sooty.
Well, you know what they say, never work with kids, animals, babies,
Puppets.
puppets.
And I
Yeah, that's
think
what they told
there's
Jim
only one.
Henson.
And I think there's only one scene in the film that has none of those things in.
Yeah, that's
Which
coming up.
which was the easiest scene to shoot.
Well,
Police alert.
that the baby, I believe his real name is actually Toby, and his parents were actually crew members, and they were actually on site with him, trying to get him to behave. Oh, and I want to say that his mother actually had her start on Sesame Street. Am I remembering that correctly?
No idea.
Yeah, maybe someone in the chat can correct me. I think she had her start in puppetry. She was one of the puppet creators. I think she got her start in Sesame Street or the Muppet Show, but she's been with Jim Henson for a very long time. Oh, yes, Mad Matt. I remember Zoom. I remember that. Oh boy, Miss Swift. Yes, that picture of the electric company takes me back. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alex Peacock, do you recall when James Earl Jones counted and recited the alphabet? Oh boy, that takes me back.
If you want fun with all things Muppetry, get onto YouTube and do a search for Roger Moore's appearance on The Muppet Show.
And I'm sure I saw that.
Where well, obviously he's there, I think, to promote Moonraker, and naturally has various Muppet spies try and kill him, and Miss Piggy try and do severely inappropriate things between a man and a pig.
I will have to revisit that episode. That was another show I remember, the original Muppet Show. Oh, this scene in the movie, this is a very intricate dance scene. And of
Mm,
course, you could tell it's all like green screened in the back,
yeah.
but there was probably three or four um, puppeteers controlling each one of those in sync, just doing it all in sync.
Oh,
Oh, Alex Peacock says Roger Moore on the Muppet Show. All the Muppet Show is on Disney Plus. Okay.
I have to
I
say, this musical number is strangely reminiscent of the Gremlins. I think it's from the way that they're, well, not only puppetry, but the fact that these things are so gleeful in what they're doing.
Oh, I see Gary in the chat. Blue screen back then. Oh, could be a blue screen back then.
They tended to use blue or yellow, I think, then.
Well, yeah, this movie's been moving right along. We're almost an hour in.
And now she appears to have wandered onto the set of the never-ending story.
Let's hope
Just around
not.
the corner, there will be a horse drowning in a swamp.
Boy, seeing that scene once was enough for me. They haven't hit the bog yet. I think, are they in the bog yet?
That looks quite boggy beneath them.
Yep.
That looks like the bog of eternal stench.
We can probably imagine what that must smell like. The worst smell that you have ever smelled that stays with you and on you for the rest of your life.
Given what the things emitting the marsh gas look like, the part of the human body they look like, I think we can pretty much imagine with a high degree of certainty what it's meant to smell like. Very shoddy workmanship in this labyrinth.
You can't walk on a ledge anymore without falling at your feet.
And someone really needs to speak to the builders about acceptable safety standards.
So she originally had 13 hours to complete this. And then David Bowie comes in and shortens it by a couple hours. So you figure she had a whole maybe 9 or 10 hours. Um, Realistically, do you think she could have done it in 10 hours? And you think 10 hours, no problem. That's a lot of time. And I always figured at some point in that bog, they should have gotten at least a drop on them. At least. It's never that neat.
But then they would have stunk forever.
That's true.
I
Oh, Mad Matt. That is a great image from one of the best Monty Python movies, in my opinion.
I was going to
And,
say that Sir Didymus is very, very obviously something written by Terry Jones.
mhm.
Very, very reminiscent of something like The Black Knight. "'Tis but a flesh wound," he says.
Oh, so Alex Peacock is showing the scene from the Lord of the Rings. And so that got me thinking also. Um, so at the time that we do these watch parties, and I'm pretty much sticking to the normal time and the normal day because I think we've all gotten used to it.
Which
Um,
fortunately means we can't do 3.5 hour Peter Jackson films.
so, so that's kind of where I'm getting. To do a Lord of the Rings, to do some of the epic movies that we all know and love, we're looking at over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And so where I'm at in the States, it's early afternoon, but I know for some people that are watching, it's starting to get late in the evening. Um, so I'm hesitating on doing a really long movie.
I'm a big fan of
Um,
90-minute movies.
so yeah, I like the idea of just keeping them maybe 2 hours, a little over 2 hours.
As
Um,
as I say, if Casablanca can do it in 100 minutes, filmmakers should ask themselves, do they really need more?
uh, yeah. Um, yeah, Alex Peacock, no Ben Hur. Yeah, no other long haul stuff. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Because if I was to do, yeah, okay, so Edward the Black Prince, so it's 3:30 where you are. It's only about 2:30 where I am. Um,
It's 9:30 where I am.
so yeah, I mean, we're getting to where after about an hour and a half to 2 hours, it's time to wrap it up. But if I was to do a longer movie, first of all, how likely are you guys to stick around? And maybe we push the time back, the start time back, so we kind of still end at the same time. What do you say?
It would very much depend on what the movie is.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just really interested in what everybody says. James wants Bambi versus Godzilla. Thank you,
Whoever
Matt.
wins, we all lose.
I I saw Bambi versus Godzilla for the first time last night. It popped up randomly on YouTube, and yes, it's about a minute long.
I mean, thing is, if a film can actually, in its story, justify its length, I don't have a problem. But
Yeah,
but the issue is, so many times I find films are long for the sake of being long, and
yeah,
you see some of these special editions people have done. James Cameron, naming no names, James Cameron, where they've gone and put back lots of footage they were made to take out of the theatrical release. And I kind of come away watching that and go, well, actually, as nice as some of this extra stuff is, the producers were right. You didn't need the extra hour.
Yeah. Um, and that is something to consider. Um, yeah, I'm very hesitant about casting too wide of a net on all of these movies. I would love to do Lord of the Rings. I would love to do a lot of those long form movies. Yeah, Mad Matt, no Snyder cuts, no. Um, but
Who doesn't want 4 hours of black and white superhero borathon?
oh, you know,
I
I
will
look,
let you have a longer film if it
yeah.
is the extended TV cut of Superman the movie. I will make an exception for that.
All right, I'll make a note.
The 3 hour
Um,
version where there's more flying, more Christopher Reeve, more Gene Hackman.
um, yeah, and so I think if there is a movie in particular I'd like to do, I might just put a poll out there. Maybe we start early, but honestly, when my older kids were young and I was taking care of them, I was never able to sit through even a 2 hour movie in one sitting. I was 2 or 3 days. It took me to watch a 2 hour movie. So it was only after, my older kids had grown that I was able to actually sit down and watch
Oh,
a
Miss
2 hour
Smith,
movie.
what's the 3 hour version of Alan Smithy's Dune?
So, so I get it. So like a 3 hour movie, I could probably sit through. Es- Um,
But you
but
just
you know,
you don't just have to sit through it, you have to talk through it.
exactly. So for all of you who are familiar with my history with this, I've been with these watch parties since the beginning, and on occasion I've been in front of the camera like this, which is fine. But I've gotten my niche with you guys in the chat. That's where I was my happiest, and I could just type away. And if I had to take a bathroom break, I could take a bathroom break. Um, so this is very, very different for me. And so getting used to doing it this way. I don't mind. I love doing this. Um, I feel it's important that we continue these. And so but it is something that I have to consider doing this. I can't really just get up and leave if it's too long of a movie.
Yes, 2.5 hours into your watch party, your hosts are bored and have decided to go to bed.
An intermission. I'll click an intermission. Um, yes, Fraglord, maybe we could have guest hosts. I would love that. Um, James has been so gracious to volunteer to do this. I have, um, well, I guess I could say it. I have Mad Matt doing it next week. Um, and then after that, I am up for if any of you guys want to jump on board. Um, we'll see about rotating co-hosts, rotating people who do this. Um, I remember at the beginning of the watch parties, before Andrew did it, they had different people doing it. Um, so I don't know exactly where we're going to land with this. If it's going to be me and like a permanent co-host, so to speak, like Andrew and Dom, or if I have so many people that want to do it that I just, we just take turns. Um, I'm up for anything. Reach out to me on YouTube. My email is also there on YouTube. Reach out to me and let me know if you want to do it. I'm on Discord in this chat. Let me know. Okay. Oh, Eric, you are both doing great, and I am so happy you wanted to continue. Thank you, Eric. Me too. I didn't want to let this time with you guys fall by the wayside. And I'm glad that Andrew and Dom can now take a rest and have a life on Sundays. And I'm so happy to do this.
I'm sure they're glad not to be having to spend their Sunday nights watching age inappropriate relationships between
Oh,
characters like these.
yeah, this I know this bothered the critics, and I know this bothered a lot of people where the this seemed to be going. If we just keep this in like the boundaries of her imagination, her dream, and we just kind of keep it there, then it's
I
okay.
I kind of see it's about she's at that point in her life where she's going through the process of going from being a girl to being a woman, and this is how she's kind of processing whether she wants to be with the safety of staying as a child, or whether she wants to become an adult, and the slightly risque figure of Jagreth is the representation of sort of adulthood.
Well, definitely the theme is her going from childhood to adulthood, and that is never easy.
It's essentially the company of wolves with fewer werewolves.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Frizzle, I think hosting once would be cool, but I am not technically proficient, so live streaming to YouTube seems like a marvel to me. I have definitely been on a learning curve. I
Well,
am technically proficient. I hardware and software, but just learning this new program is challenging.
yeah.
Um,
I see Mad Matt making the
yeah,
point that Jennifer and David were only 23 years apart in age, which is true, it's not an insurmountable age gap, but as she is meant to be 13, it is, in my view, probably something that nowadays people would think is a little inappropriate.
I think that the term would be grooming. I think I could say that.
Yes.
Um, yeah, 23 years is not that bad if she was
If
10
he
years
was a
older.
billionaire with a heart condition, then it would be perfectly
Right,
acceptable.
right. Yeah. I think the biggest age gap that I have seen in recent memory, if anybody remembers Anna Nicole Smith, um, she was in her 20s and
And that
she
is
married
a billionaire with a heart condition.
in his 90s, I believe. Okay. I say
And
that with a chuckle. I'm
and
sure there was love.
I think he inconsiderately didn't die for a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. So age gaps being what they are, it's all relative. You know, you don't want to do it as a teenager. It's just yeah. Oh, Edward the Black Prince, groomed by David Bowie, every 80s girl. Well, I was an 80s girl in high school in the 80s, and there's something more to that. Yes. Oh, yes, I forgot about this old lady. So we seem to think Sarah is back in her room, and I think she's processing it that no, she can't possibly be back in her room.
That's it. Give her lipstick, make her grow up. She doesn't appear to have noticed the photo of David Bowie on her mirror frame.
No, I think we all noticed that. Well, I mean, really, I just relate to Sarah, um, the struggle with being a teenager. Everybody goes through that. You want to be grown up. You think you know what being grown up is, um, and you just have to realize it's not easy. Oh, I think this is the scene where I know it's not in the Guinness Book of World Record, but at the time that this was made, this was the biggest puppet ever created. And he's basically a giant. Or that might be later in the battle scene. Oh, any spoilers? No spoilers.
I like the way Ambrosius keeps swapping between being a puppet dog and an actual dog,
Yes.
depending on
Oh,
the shot.
so this is the creature that is actually a puppet. Well, where they go between a real dog and a puppet dog, it's very obvious. Whereas if they had done it CGI, they might make it a little bit more believable, but the beauty is in the practical.
Well, it's very obvious that Ambrosius doesn't have to look real. He's Hermione's reimagination of her dog. What was its name? Merlin.
Yep. Every element in this labyrinth is an element from her real life. Oh, Fraglord, is that the dog from Fraggle Rock? Would be white, yes. Why does that look so familiar?
It's not the dog from Fraggle Rock.
It looks like it.
Of course, I think you actually would have had different Fraggle Rock from us,
Okay.
because I think the lighthouse scenes that we had filmed in the UK are different from what you had as the human wraparound scenes in American Fraggle Rock. We had, I think it's a chap called Fulton Mackay, who was one of the prison warders from the sitcom Porridge, was at the ran the lighthouse. Because I think the whole concept with Fraggle Rock was they do the puppet bits, and then every country they sold it to could do its own domestic wraparound story.
Interesting. I remember when it came out in the States, um, and I can't remember the actor. It was the older guy, the actor that was in it.
I believe
Um,
you probably had Gerard Parks.
Probably, boy, that goes back to the
But
early 80s, I believe. HBO, Fraggle Rock.
yeah, but I think that the British version basically now only exists on a load of hooky VHS tapes
Yeah.
because the station that ran it and produced the British version doesn't exist anymore, and so it's got lost between the different stations.
Interesting. That's some pretty good,
Yeah,
interesting
so
history.
the North American version had an inventor named Doc with his dog Sprocket.
Oh, Sprocket. Oh my gosh,
The
yes.
the British insert was set on an island with a lighthouse. With Fulton Mackay was the captain of the lighthouse, who lived with his faithful dog, also known as Sprocket.
Very interesting.
France, it took place in a bakery with a baker called Doc and his French sprocket called Crocket.
Oh my. That is amazing history that as a young kid in the 80s when it came out, I had no way of knowing that. And it was only years later with the advent of the internet and instantaneous news, all of this info that we could share, that we get all of this cool history.
Well, I think I probably wouldn't have been aware of it until I've seen some reruns on some station of Fraggle Rock, and then have been puzzled by it, going, "Well, who the hell is this person, Doc? Where's
Yeah,
the house?"
exactly. That's not Fraggle Rock. Oh, and we have, okay, so we're in the battle scene, um, that Jim Henson specifically directed, where no one dies, there's no extensive injuries. Um, this is a very tame fight scene compared to what we've seen in some of the adult movies. And I say adult like the horror movies, obviously.
Yes, it's severely lacking in Kane Hodder hacking people up with a machete.
Yeah, there's no machine guns, there's, no explosions.
See,
It
what it needs now is Michael Caine with a 50 caliber machine gun.
And maybe a little Kane Hodder coming in as Jason.
You could easily replace one of these
Yeah.
diminutive armored people with Kane Hodder as Jason. Yes.
Yep. They had to maintain, I think, a PG rating. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a G movie; it was a PG. So yeah, you're allowed a little bit of violence. You're what? You're not allowed blood. You're not allowed cuss words. Um,
Well, I think in the UK this got Cert U, which is universal, suitable for all,
okay.
which is basically the tamest certificate you can get.
So yeah, this movie is a little on the tame side, um, but it really embodies the 80s practical effects fantasy movie for kids of all ages.
Mm. Again, with the cityscape, I think the obvious artifice of it kind of works in the dream's favour.
So I wasn't sure, but when we get to those cityscapes, was it all practical effects or are there matte paintings on any of the background?
I think
Oh,
that's
it
just.
looks like matte
I
paintings.
think it's just a painted cyclorama, and
Yeah,
it's not. It's not. It's not a matte painting.
yeah. It didn't look like it. Maybe the the sky was probably a matte painting, but yeah, this looks all just created.
You see something like the sky in the background there. I don't think that's matte. I just think that's literally a cyclorama at the back of the studio.
Okay, now I get the sense that these boulders are alive.
The boulders have been heavily inspired by Raiders of the Lost Ark or Terry's Chocolate Orange adverts.
Oh, that's a new one. I haven't seen that. Is that like a commercial in the UK?
I Do you have chocolate oranges in the United States?
Yes,
Well, we
I've
have
seen that.
the Terry's Chocolate Orange, which had a famous advert for years, where someone is pursuit, Indiana Jones style out tomb raiding, and then a giant chocolate orange comes rolling down the tunnel after them.
Okay, interesting. And I've never actually eaten one of the chocolate oranges, but I've seen them. I think during like the Christmas holiday candy rows at the grocery store.
And I will just hopefully drop a find it.
Yeah, now these rocks are very much acting like they're alive. Yeah, and yeah, deliberately squishing that guy.
I just dropped a link to a Terry's Chocolate Orange advert into the chat.
Oh, and that's the Indiana Jones one. I'll have to check that out.
It's a mere 30 seconds, still packs the whole story in.
Oh, Miss Swift, Ludo has the ability to call rocks. So that makes sense. Oh, this is one of my favorite scenes. This, when I first saw it, it blew my mind. And I think, James, because you didn't see it in the theater, you saw it after, like on video.
I think it would have been on commercial television. So you're looking on ITV, one of what would have been our then grand total of 3 television stations.
Yeah, I seem to recall. I did not see this in the theater. I think it was either like a video rental
This is
or
this is what an
probably on
this is
gut.
taking off an MC Escher painting.
Exactly. The way that they shoot this though is it's beautiful.
Which I have to say, just a few years before Peter Davison's first Doctor Who story, did this Castrovalva did the same in a low-budget, studio-bound BBC way.
Wow.
I wouldn't be too worried about Toby. The laws of gravity clearly don't apply here.
No, that the way that they've created it to actually look like a 3D Escher painting.
Well, the difference here is they've actually constructed a set, and by the look of it, a couple of matte paintings to put it all in place, whereas your BBC Doctor Who version would just have people rush off one side of the screen and then reappear rushing on the other side of the screen.
And when was Peter Davison Doctor Who? Or,
You're looking at like 1981.
oh wow, was that was after Tom Baker, right?
Yeah,
Or right before?
Tom had it for 7 years, and that was I was wrong, 1982.
Wow. Try so hard to keep track.
But
Because right now I think they're on what, the 12th, the Doctor?
I think he's technically the 15th.
15th. Ooh, that's I don't know. They seem to be going through them every couple of years. Well, I mean that's the whole idea though, right? A new iteration of Doctor Who, because the first Doctor, the guy who played it got, I believe he got cancer and died after playing it for a couple of years, so they had to do something. So there you go.
No, he was still alive to come back and appear in the 10th anniversary story, The Three Doctors.
Hmm.
He had ill health, but he didn't die for quite a long time afterwards.
Oh, well, good. Okay. I seem to recall he had passed away, or yeah, it was because of his health that he couldn't continue.
I believe he got arteriosclerosis and uh, maybe vascular dementia, and so was finding it harder to remember his lines and things. But he was still around to appear 10 years later, albeit not in good health, for a cameo. I mean, I tend to think nowadays the problem is less them changing the leading actor, it's more changing the production teams behind it, because it used to be that the stories could be very varied and you might like some and not others. And now with this showrunner production model they've got, everything they make is pretty much the same, and if you don't like one of it, you won't like the rest of it, and there just isn't that sense of variety anymore.
Well, has it just become too Hollywood? That's what happens when something gets too Hollywood.
Well, they have taken money from the House of Mouse now.
Uh, Disney now owns everything. Oh, this okay. So we're at that moment where she said, "You have no power over me." That's the moment.
Oh, that damn owl is back.
I mean, it sort of looks like a, no, it's not flying like a real owl. I mean, when you really look at it, you could tell it's not a real one. Does anyone remember at the beginning of the movie what time it was? Because we're just now seeing it's midnight. So how much time had passed? I forgot to check that clock. So I think my understanding of this movie is the minute that she gave her prized teddy bear to her brother, it's when she kind of mentally grew up, and she embraced that it is time to grow up. Although she keeps her fantasy world alive.
Throw away her photo of David Bowie,
Mhm.
though.
Yep. Who supposedly just stole the mom. I'm sure the mom went willingly. Oh, I love this goodbye scene. Oh.
Maudlin and schmaltzy.
Not that I'm going to shed tears, but it really is a symbolism of putting childish things aside, ready to grow up, yet keeping um, that childish spirit alive for when you need it, because you're going to need it growing up. And I think we all understand that. I think that's why we're here. We love what movies have to offer. We love the power of movies. We love what they say to us and how we can relate. Yes, Eric, because of this movie, I never really grew up. Same. That's one of the movies that kept me young. Although I don't think I was ever young.
And we end with a bad special effects owl flying off into the
To the
moonscape.
moon. And there you have it. All right. Anybody have last thoughts? I think that was, well, thank you, Mr. Frizzle. That was a good start. That was just an enjoyable, fun movie for us all. Um, so, yeah, I like everybody put their parting words in the chat. We will end on a high note. Um, so, let's make the announcement for next week. So next week, well, thank you so much, James, for joining me today. If you're up for it, we'll bring you back. Wasn't too bad, was it?
Grumble, grumble, fantasy film. Grumble, grumble.
Grumble, grumble. Um, so, okay, so I lost my train of thought. So going forward, yes, I'll be choosing a lot of these movies. However, with the guests coming on, if people have a particular movie they would like to show, then I think I'm going to go in that direction too. So it's not always going to be movies that I want us to see. Um, so, because this was our first outing, James, I know you didn't have much of a say in the movie. Um,
You say not much of a say. I would have said not any of a say.
None. I kind of had my heart set on this movie. It was between this and a couple other movies how we wanted to start off, but um, this was really encapsulated the 80s. One of the reasons why I got into Creator VC was because of their love of the 80s. And so this is why I'm here. This is why we're all here. So we're going to keep this tradition going. Next week, we're going to be watching Death Race 2000. And Mad Matt has agreed to be my guest next week. So I hope it all comes together next
Just to
week.
clarify, this is the Paul Bartel directed, Roger Corman produced, Sylvester Stallone starring one, and not the remake.
That's the one. That's the one. Um, and this is one of the movies that we discussed in the chat. I think a couple months ago we had a poll. So we're
It's
going to be doing.
the poor man's rollerball.
Yep. So, all right, and so Death Race 2000 is available, from what I could tell, on all the major platforms. You should be able to stream it, no problem. I would love for everybody to be able to watch this for free on a free service. That might mean you have commercials, but really, we can just do the best we can. But I do know it's readily available. So we're going to be doing this again next week. And thank you all for the kind words. All right, Calbot says, great movie. Yes, Jedi Wizard, the watch party was great. Well, I'm glad we didn't have any difficulties and everything went smoothly. And we're going to continue it next week. So thank you all for joining me today with James, aka Pazuzu. Thank you, James. And I'll let you have the parting words, James.
Oh, and on that bombshell, thank you for putting up with me this week, even if I had to tolerate a fantasy film against my will.
I know. The next time you co-host, it will be a movie of your choosing that you could share, your love of. So, all right, all. Thank you so much, and we will see you
Good
next
night
time.
or afternoon.
Yep. Good night, good evening, good morning, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much.